Hello and welcome to another episode of Lids Off. I am your host, Bo Snow, joined again today with another fabulous guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much for having me. My name's Emma Barrow. My pronouns are she, her. I am, as of Saturday, 37 years old, and I play for Leeds Chargers on the offensive line. So typically I play right guard. And my NFL team is the San Francisco 49ers.
And that's the end of the episode. Thank you very much.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
You can fill the blanks yourself.
So, we'll start like every other episode. How did football find you, Em?
Interesting question. So I found football as a sport quite a few years ago. So I do a lot of holidays to America. I'm really lucky that I travel quite a lot. It's the perk of not having children and not having to spend your money on children. I travelled quite a lot in my sort of late 20s and 30s and went to America a lot. And again, not having children, typically travelled to America outside of school holidays. So I was often in America for football season. So I kind of got really into watching it when I was out there because like the whole vibes of just going down to the bar, having a couple of drinks, having to get a bit of food and watching the game, absolutely fell in love with it. And I had no idea that you could play in the UK, especially as a woman. Absolutely no idea, zero. Even after getting into the sport and kind of watching it for quite a while, never was exposed to it at university, even though I know that my university did have a team now, I know that, but I didn't at the time. And I was actually competing in strength sports. So I was competing in strongwoman and had done a little bit of powerlifting as well. And a girl called Emma Cook, who's on our team as well, who...
I love Em Cook. She's amazing.
She is. So she was the second Emma to join the Chargers, and she recruited me as the third Emma to join the Chargers. She basically kind of harassed me into coming down and said, we're always looking for new players, you know. And I was quite reluctant, but she was like, you know, you've got strength, and that's like one of the base things that you can use. And she was like, you'll really enjoy it, come down. So she basically harassed me into coming down. What was that? Just over 3 years ago now. So back end of 2021, she harassed me into coming down. So that's how it found me. I think that's how it finds a lot of people. Someone who had already fallen in love with it, kind of reaching out and saying, I think you do a good job and come and give it a try.
So what was that like going down to your first session? I mean, you had Em, so...
Yeah, I did cling to her like a limpet, I'll be honest, because despite the fact that, God, how old would I have been then? 33, 34, something like that. Despite my advanced years and kind of being quite confident in other areas of my life, I was really unconfident when it came to sport, really unconfident. And by the time Emma had persuaded me to come down, it was about August, and the Chargers were kind of right at the end of their season at that point. So I'm not going to lie, it was quite intimidating to go down. They were deep in the prep for their final game day of the season. I'd never touched a football in my life, never touched a bit of football kit in my life, and I got chucked straight in. Like,
holy shit.
Yeah, and I watched a video quite recently. I watched a video of my first training session, and I spent more time on my arse on the floor than anything else, because I am just so naturally clumsy and not particularly graceful that it took me quite a long while to work out how to stay on my feet. So yeah, it was quite intimidating, but I had someone there that I knew, and Emma's great, and I felt really I did feel very welcome, I'll be honest. Like, it was all the intimidation and the fear was on me, was not on the girls. It wasn't on the coaches. It was absolutely on me. But I did love it from that very first day, even though the next day I couldn't walk because my hip flexors were destroyed. I absolutely loved it from that very first day. And there was no way I wasn't going to come back.
Really? So
Yeah.
what was it that you were like, actually, this is for me? Because, you know, a lot of people could go through what you went through and go, actually, I got put on my arse quite a lot. This isn't for me. Especially going into it as a 34-year-old. You're like, ugh.
I think, so as I said, I felt very intimidated around sport, and I grew up in a fairly sporty household, actually. So my dad was a climber, a runner, like really what you would call, in inverted commas, an athlete. He was like really, really sporty and was really into sport. So I grew up watching a lot of sport, not necessarily team sport, but a lot of athletics, a lot of swimming, golf, tennis, little bit of football, but like soccer football, but not a lot of team sport. So I was quite exposed to sport, but as like a singular activity.
Yeah.
And at school, I was never any good at sport. So I've always been overweight. I've always been what you would call like not very athletic. So I've always kind of struggled to fit in sport. At school, so I never did well at team sport. Did skiing, did other kind of really randomly did skiing because where I grew up, there was literally nothing to do other than a dry ski slope. So I grew up in the northwest, so I grew up in Rossendale, and there's literally a dry ski slope, and that was it. So I skied and did things like that, but it was always singular. It was always on your own, and I almost grew up thinking that that's all I would ever be able to do in sport, and I was sort of desperate to really get into a team sport, but just never felt like I could. And I'll be honest, I never tried because I just felt excluded before I even started. Okay. And again, that's probably on me more than on anyone that I ever interacted with. But I just felt like my face, or more precisely my body, didn't fit in a team sport. So when I found football, and even though, I got put on my arse quite a lot in that first training session and I hurt the next day, I was immediately made to feel like I could fit. And immediately I was surrounded by girls who were bigger than me, smaller than me, the same size as me, older than me, younger than me, from all walks of life. And immediately I thought, oh, this is somewhere I could actually fit in. And that for me was far more important than would I be any good at it. All of that just went out the window, and it was like, I feel like I can fit in here, and I feel like I could actually do a reasonable job. And that for me was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to stick at this and I'm going to give it a good try.
How did that feel for the first time, being like,
I'm going to try and not get emotional about it, but it was kind of overwhelming. Like, I genuinely, honestly, it was overwhelming because like I say, I'd spent my entire adult life, so the past sort of 15 years or so, ever since I left school, thinking I would never be able to be in a team sport and never have that kind of community and camaraderie and the great feeling you get when you win, and to be fair, there's still the great feeling you get when you lose because you've done it together. That kind of, I just never thought that would happen for me. And I thought that any sport that I could get into would always just be that singular, doing it on your own. And I'd kind of come to terms with that, and suddenly realising that wasn't the case, and I could actually do something with other people and find that community was quite overwhelming. And it has changed a lot of things for me in a really positive way, at quite an age where I thought I wouldn't be experiencing new things and doing that kind of stuff. So it's been really kind of life-changing. I know that sounds really trite, but it has been quite life-changing for me.
No, that's really, really powerful. So how long were you doing, because you mentioned strong woman and powerlifting, how long were you doing that before?
So because I've always been into fitness and kind of wanted to do it, after I left uni, as most people, well, not most people, that's probably unfair, but a lot of people leave uni like I did, like unfit. I'd spent three or 4 years just like eating and drinking. Like, I think that's a fairly common thing, right? And so when I left uni, like 21 years old, I felt a bit grim, and I thought, oh God, I really need to sort my life out. So I tried lots of different things. I dabbled in the standard stuff that you dabble in, going for a run, trying to do Couch to 5K, all of that sort of stuff. And a friend of mine at the time, so bear in mind I'm quite old, so this was like 2008 when I left uni, a friend of mine was one of the first people in the country to get a CrossFit qualification. So he started to teach CrossFit back in like 2008, 2009, when it was like really new. And he like begged me to come down and take part. And it was mainly just because they were new and they were trying to get people involved. And I went down and I actually quite enjoyed it, even though I was absolutely shocking at most of it. And I really engaged with the strength side of it. And I realised that I was naturally strong, which I kind of knew, but like I hadn't really tested it out before. So I did that only for a little while because, good grief, can I not do gymnastics or anything like that? Like the strength bit of it was the only bit I could do convincingly. I still get like a toxic reaction if someone asks me to do a burpee. So I stuck at it for a little while, and then I thought, you know what, I probably should just do the strength training. So I found a gym, like a strongman type gym, and just picked that up. So I'd probably been doing that for about 3 or 4 years prior to COVID. So I competed in England's Strongest Woman in 2000 and I want to say 2017, 2018, something like that. So I've been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 years. And then it had kind of fizzled out a little bit because of COVID. Obviously, you couldn't go to the gym and you can't really do Atlas stones in your living room or your garden like you might be able to do some other stuff. So I kind of fell out of love a little bit of it during COVID, with not having access to the gym, and then football came along kind of after COVID, and then I do still do my strength training. I think it's incredibly important if you really want to, especially if you're a lineman, if you want to be serious about that position. I think your strength training, I mean, I think it's important for everybody, but particularly for my position, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be keeping up with the younger people basically, because the older you get, the more injury prone you are. That's just a fact. So keeping up with that strength training has been really quite important.
So what do you feel like starting strength training was the start of your journey to kind of a more accessible, empathetic way of my body is actually strong? Or do you think it was the final kind of migration into team sport that gave you closure of actually my body is athletic?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I definitely think it's the team sport that was that closure, because yes, strength sport is inclusive, absolutely, and the body that I was born with is suited to it. So I did feel kind of quote unquote at home in strength sports, but even there, there was just things that weren't quite right for me. So if you compete in powerlifting in this country, the highest women's weight category is 84 kilos. So if you're above 84 kilos, you're an open weight. Like I weigh 120 on a good day. Like you know what I mean?
Same, but
so even that
Jesus,
made me
come
feel.
on.
I know, and even that made me feel slightly uncomfortable. And it's the same in strong women as well. Actually, it's a similar kind of weight range. But even that made me feel at a small level made me feel really kind of unwelcome in a way, because it's kind of like once you get past 84 kilos, you're irrelevant. You're just in the fat people category. And as someone that was kind of, like I say, 35 kilos away from that, like how was I ever going to make that weight category? I would literally have to like chop a leg off or something. It just isn't achievable.
Yeah.
So even though it is inclusive, and even though the body that I have helped me because it allowed me to build muscle and be strong, I still felt like an outsider to an extent. And football, like, just straight away, that just all dissipated. And the amount of confidence that I've got compared to what I had when I started, and as I say, especially as someone of my age, where you think all that stuff's gone and been and gone, you've kind of cemented your personality and cemented where you are. That wasn't the case, and actually football allowed me to let go of some of the last things and this is really going to sound really ridiculous, but silly things like I would never train in shorts. Like I still was scared of getting my legs out, or I was silly things like that. And even though I'd been around strength sports, and even though I'd done that, I still carried those things with me, and football's got rid of them, and that's amazing. And I can't say whether some of it might be just I am a little bit older and give less of a shit. Like some of that might be at play as well. But I definitely think football's accelerated it, if not kind of caused that change, which is great. It's great.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful. I mean, I don't think it's silly, because I think when we were growing up, it was coded around you had to be a size 4, and there was like really heavily negative language around a body that wasn't a specific type. So to carry that all the way through your life, like I know I still carry it, and it's just really hard to kind of break that mold. So for you to be brave enough to go, I've had nothing but negative kind of feedback all the way through my athletic career of this, my body still doesn't belong even though I'm strong, is really powerful for you to make yourself vulnerable again and open up to more women. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like it's even been a journey. So the first year, so I got into offensive line because when I turned up for my first training session, as I said, we were way past rookie sessions. We were like deep in the season, so there was no kind of try it out. Emma was like, "Here, Connor, she can deadlift almost 200 kilos," and he went, "Oh, offensive line, get in there." Like that was it. That was like there was no debate, there was no choice. Now, obviously, coach wasn't wrong. That was the position that I am best at. But for that first, I mean, we played sevens my first year, my first full year playing. And I remember going up to nines last year. And one of the first things we said in the kind of sort of classroom sessions we did at the beginning of the season was, right, this is a chance for even those of you who are experienced players now to try something different, because we're going to need different players. We're going to need more skilled players. We're going to need special teams, obviously, you know, different things. And I remember the first gut feeling that I had was, well, there's no point in me thinking about that because I can't do anything other than offensive line. So even then, even like a year in, my brain was still in that mode of, you're not an athlete. You've wheedled your way into this position because that's what your natural build is suited for, but don't even think about doing anything else because you were shit at it. And that was the kind of like immediate thought that I had. And I remember checking myself at that point and going, oh, that's really interesting that you're still thinking like that. And I've forced myself over the past 18 months, 2 years, now we've been at nines. I mean, yes, I'm still playing offensive line, obviously, because it's where I do a good job. But in training sessions, I'm not scared to put my hand up and go, you know what, I'm going to try and be a kicker. I'm going to try and be a returner. I'm going to try and run the ball. I'm going to try and play linebacker and tackle people randomly. Like, I've really sort of had to force myself past those last few barriers. And it's a constant work in progress because I definitely still come up against them. But slowly but surely, I'm just kind of unpicking them all and going, no, you can actually be good. You can catch a ball. You can throw a ball. You can do other things. It's okay. And you're in a community and you're in a team of people that absolutely are going to piss themselves laughing at you and get it wrong, but in a really supportive way. And it's going to be okay.
How was that for you, going from quite a solitary kind of athletic career where you rely on you and all the feedback that you've had? I mean, you've had supportive people along the way, but the whole athletic journey is your body doesn't belong and there is a limit to your capability. How was that for you, joining a team sport? And part of being in a team is relying and trusting other people. How was that for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the first time in my life I've ever had a big group of female friends, if I'm honest. So I grew up massively as a tomboy when I was younger. Like, I was always out with the boys, never really fit in with girls, for many reasons. I mean, again, to go back to it, part of it was my body and the fact that I was big and unattractive, essentially, in the traditional way. And when you're at school, girls can be really horrible. And I really struggled with female friends growing up. So it was the first time I'd had a big group of female friends, and they are just so supportive. And like I say, you just never for a minute have I ever felt stupid or felt like I hadn't belonged. They pick you up when you're having a bad day. The first thing they say to you when you get something wrong is kind of like, don't worry about it, you know, get on to the next rep, whatever. I just have never felt that support before, and I didn't know what it was like to feel that supported. And it's not just the players as well. Like, I've been really lucky with the coaches that we've worked with over the past couple of years. So in a solo sport, if you have a coach at all, you just have one. And you might not, depending on what you do and how you do it, you might not even see them very often. So for most of my strength training, I had a remote coach, someone who just did my programming for me, and I might speak to them on WhatsApp a couple of times a week, and that was about it. And I went from that to having 6, 7 people there to help and to teach me and to encourage me. And that was just like hugely eye-opening. I mean, despite the fact that I'm probably old enough to be some of them's mother, like that didn't matter so much. But it was just nice to have people that are like in your corner and want you to do a good job and want to help you do a good job. That was just something that I wasn't really familiar with. And in my professional life, I've always been the person that other people look to for help. So I'm the people pleaser, I'm the fixer, that's
Yeah.
me. And it was very strange to have to almost hand that over and be like, okay, I'm the rookie now. I don't know what I'm doing, and I need to rely on all of these girls and these coaches to help me do a good job. And I can't do it on my own because I have no idea what I'm doing. And that was a big deal, to sort of like hand over control almost to someone else. But it's been really refreshing, and it's taught me a lot. And it's definitely, I mean, there's some amazing statistics about it, but it's definitely changed how I approach things in my professional life. Absolutely. Because it's taught me maybe a different way of doing things. And it's taught me it's okay to ask someone else for their opinion and for their help, and you don't have to do everything yourself. So yeah, it's been pretty transformational, really.
Yeah, it sounds like a really like raw process, like completely turning your world upside down
Yeah.
and going through it again. What were the hardest parts of that process of being a rookie?
Definitely, as I've said kind of a few times now, recognizing that all my sort of limiting beliefs were mine. They weren't anyone else's. They weren't the people that I was stood alongside at training. They weren't the coaches. Having to literally have that like therapy with yourself to say, it's you. Every limiting thought you've had about this is you. Not one other person has said to you, you can't do this, you won't be good at this, you shouldn't try that. No one said any of that. All that everyone else has said is, you can do this, you're doing a great job, X, Y, and Z. So having to unpick and be really self-reflective and realize that it's all in your mind, and only you can get past that, and helping yourself get past that, and being kind to yourself. Like I could have quite easily, like with many things that I've tried in my life, given up pretty quickly and gone, okay, I've given it a few tries, but actually, the first training session that doesn't go too well, or the first time that someone has a bit of a falling out or whatever, because let's be honest, you've got 30 girls on a pitch. Oh my goodness, there's going to be, sometimes people are going to fall out. And that was the first thing I learned about having a big group of female friends for the first time. But I could have easily given up at those points, and kind of being kind to myself and saying, it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to kind of have that one step forward and two steps back, where you have those days or weeks where those limiting beliefs do creep back in, and you think, oh, I can't be doing with this. I'm just going to go back to putting my headphones on in the gym and just doing my own thing. So battling your own limiting beliefs and your own will is definitely the hardest thing. But it's the thing that's, like I say, it's helped me helped me learn a lot about myself, and learn a lot about how I approach things and how I get through difficult things, and how I can do it. And yeah, it's just been amazing, and hopefully my body will hold up for at least another few seasons to do some more.
So, kind of going back to what you said about, there are training sessions where they don't go well.
Oh yeah.
I see in you something quite similar, in the fact that I can be very self-critical. It's, something I've carried through my whole life. Playing American football is a very precise sport, and it is very focused on precise movements being done very well and executed very well. When that magnifying glass is on you, how did you cope with that shift of, because you've also got that dual burden of, I'm fucking up, but now I'm letting everybody else down. How do I cope with that? How did you shift?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that observation about the microscope being on you is interesting, because one of the things that I've always struggled with, and I still struggle with, is when you're doing like one-on-one drills and the focus is on you. So whether it be you're just doing like footwork stuff, or you're literally like one-on-one D-line and O-line, I still really struggle in those moments, and I sweat, and I don't like the kind of eyes on me and the concern that I'm not going to do a good job, and that people are going to see that I'm not doing a good job, and it's going to be awful. And I definitely still have those moments, and I have them a lot. And especially, as I mentioned, when I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. So one thing that I've been terrified of doing almost my whole time I've played football is I really don't like doing tackling drills. Now, it's not because I'm scared at all, because if it's a bag or a donut, let me at it. I'll throw myself at it and like be great, right? Or actually, when it's a coach, because some of our coaches are very kind and pad up for us to hit them, let me at him, fine. But I have got a real fear of hitting the people that I play with. And it's a real terrifying thing if I don't want to hurt people. I think I've grown, again, going back to that thing, you grew up your whole life thinking you're big, you're going to hurt people if you hit them. So I definitely still struggle on those kind of one-on-one moments that I'm going to get it wrong and I'm either going to make myself look silly or I'm going to hurt someone. When we get into kind of the team environment, I think, and we're actually playing and we're actually running plays, and obviously I play on offence, I think there's a couple of things. One, I really do pride myself on putting the work in. So I really am the nerd that watches all the film, that reads the playbook a million times, that somehow gets my left and right correct. Like I really do put the effort in so that I know when I'm stood there, if I make a mistake, it's a genuine mistake. And it's not because I've not worked hard enough. It's not because I've not put the hours in, because that's what I don't want. I don't want to make a mistake and let my team down and know that it's because I didn't do the work. If I make a mistake and let my team down because it's a genuine mistake and we're all humans and I've heard the play call wrong or I've completely forgotten my left and right, which does happen a lot, I don't mind it so much. So I think how I've combated that is to say making sure that I'm comfortable, that I've put the work in and I've done everything I can do within my power to get it right. And then if it does go wrong, fine, we have to get over it. And as I say, I've never, ever been in a position in all the games I've now played and all the training sessions I've ever been to where anyone has made me feel like shit for getting it wrong. Never. I've only ever been supported. Like I say, you'll get laughed at. I've been laughed at. A few weeks ago, I can't remember what we were running in training, but we were doing something with a different cadence to normal. And I was like, do it right, do it right, do it right, do it right, do it right. And of course I didn't do it right. I jumped immediately offside and clattered someone while everybody else stood still. And I was just like, oh God. But like I say, I want those moments to be few and far between, and I want them to be because I've just generally made a mistake. You know, it's not that I've not put the effort.
I'm really happy that you've got like a really supportive environment to do that. I feel like, especially as an older player, there is more of a pressure to kind of make the time you've got left playing sport matter. And
that's true.
I always feel like there's a little bit of a ticking clock when you're playing when 32 plus. Every player that I talk to that's over the 30s, they're like, I've only got so long left. I'm only 2 injuries away from retiring. And it's about making it count. Do you feel like there's a pressure with that because you came into the sport later, or?
Yeah, I mean, in a way I'm lucky. I almost don't think, as long as you're vaguely healthy, and yes, injuries tend to be typically more common if you're older, I think you can join at any age because you kind of I think you find you have a limited number of years, whatever. So I'm playing alongside girls that are in their late 20s, early 30s, but have played for 8, 9, 10 years. And they're like, oh, I'm done. My body's done. You know, I'm absolutely ruined. And I'm actually in a much better position than they are, but that's just because I've only been playing this is the end of my 3rd full season now. So I've been playing like 3.5 years. If I'd have been playing 6, 7 years at my age, I think I'd be absolutely ruined. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. I tore my calf in my 1st season, rehabbed that. And this is from someone that's like never had an injury before, really, other than like a little bit of a sprain or whatever. I've smashed at least 2 of my knuckles in. I've had an MRI last week because I've done something to my Achilles. It's now been going on for like a year. It isn't easy when you're older. It really isn't. And yes, I think the time is probably limited. And yes, you're probably right in that as a result of that, I have really thrown myself into this sport. So I've tried to do everything. I've moved, you know, holidays to make sure I'm playing games. I've really tried to make the most of the seasons that I've got. Outside of games, I'm volunteering for stuff. You know, I did a flag football camp at the weekend at a local festival. I mean, me playing flag for Christ's sake. But I did it because, like, I want to make the most of it, and I do want to make the most of the time that I've got. And because I want to enjoy, I like how it makes me feel, and I want to carry on that as long as possible, because I do know at my age that beyond this as a team sport, I'm going to be struggling a little bit to do anything that's anywhere near as fun once this is over. But I will definitely as well, I'm going to do my coaching qualifications over the next sort of 12 months. There is absolutely no way that I would be stepping away. So even if this MRI scan comes out bad and I have to have some surgery and maybe need to take a little bit of time away, I won't be stepping away. There's absolutely no way, because even if I'm just helping other people, I mean, some of the best training sessions I've had of when I've been injured and I've come down and just helped, like, because seeing other people grow is as exciting as, if not more exciting, than seeing myself grow. I've really enjoyed seeing, especially this year, the rookies come in. I mean, we've got a girl on the team this year who's literally just turned 17. I'm legitimately old enough to be a mother, like fully, like not even like an awkward teen pregnancy, like a full 20-year-old having a baby, but seeing her just be the amazing player that she is, and seeing her grow being around a group of women who can kind of inspire her, and all that's just like amazing. Like, it sounds really cheesy, but good God, it's amazing, and I love it, and I wouldn't be away from it now.
Long live the cheese, long live the cheese.
Yeah.
So you said when you were talking about how, being at the flag football and how the football community makes you feel.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel?
Oh yeah. This is again where I have to try not to get emotional, but it's absolutely made me feel less alone. It's I grew up in a small family, so there's just me and my brother. In terms of siblings, 2 cousins who were a bit older than me, so I didn't kind of really relate to them when I was younger. And that was it. I didn't have a big family. I didn't have many friends because, as I've said before, I was kind of a bit of an outsider at school. Was bigger than everyone else, was different, which I now know was quite likely undiagnosed ADHD. I was a complete and utter nerd, like the nerdiest of the nerds. So I never had many friends, and I grew up thinking that was what I was always going to have. And suddenly, within 12 months, I had 20 friends, and obviously you're not best friends with every single person because you just can't cope with that many friendships. But I've now got, a handful of really close friends thanks to football, and a much bigger group of, whether it be players or coaches, who I would also class as my friends as well. And it's just made me feel a lot less alone, which, yeah, has been great, if I'm honest. It's been fantastic. And I've always been an outgoing person, as that's not been the problem. I've just never found where I fit. And yeah, just a group of people that I feel like I fit in with is just amazing. And they understand, they get it, I think football, well, to be fair, strength of sport was not too dissimilar, but I feel like there's a lot of us that have been misfits in our lives who've come together.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That, in a way, that's what unites us, is the fact that we've all been a misfit in one way or another, and that's special, and that's nice, and that's lovely, because you can see how much of a difference we all make to each other. And it's not just training, is it? I mean, like, we have 3 or 4 hour drives to games, and you kind of get into some real deep and meaningful conversations, and it's just a very different kind of friendship that I've not experienced before, and possibly won't experience again either. Yeah, so it's incredible.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to take a moment to just really appreciate the Chargers program and every single person on that program that is.
They are an amazing bunch.
Yeah, that have given you a space to kind of be the best version of you, and just doing that for so many other people. So thank you, Chargers, and thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And you made me cry as well, so you're the second guest to make me cry. So
oh,
that
I'm
was incredible.
sorry, that's not my intention.
No, I get it. It completely resonates. So I'm really glad that you're valued for the asset you are, because you are incredible.
Thank you.
So talking about how much of an asset you are, you said about, you're strong, but there is a difference in strength and being physical in football.
Yeah.
how's that journey been for you, kind of going into contact and being able to use that?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
speaking as someone that's perpetually at sevens, nines contact is something else. How's that journey been for you?
Yeah, that's again really, really interesting. So I really struggled with contact at first, and not in the way that you might think, not kind of like I was afraid of it or I didn't want to do it. I absolutely love hitting shit. It's great. So I didn't struggle with the wanting to do it. I really struggled with the technique and like actually being able to channel that energy because I'd never done it before, never played a contact sport. I'd learned to use my strength in a static way with kind of powerlifting movements. And then I had learned to use it in a more active way through strongman, but it was still a very different way of doing it. So in strongman, you don't hit things, you kind of push things. So the initial contact is quite gentle and then you push it. So it was quite different to learn to, like, my coach would be like, why don't you just fucking hit her? Like, just fucking hit her. And I'd be like, I can't, I don't know what it is, but I can't do it. And I just couldn't. And I've never punched anyone in my life. I couldn't understand how to do that kind of real dynamic movement. And I did really, 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 really struggle. And again, it was kind of frustrating for a while. And part of it, I think I mentioned earlier, part of it was when you're on a squad who, we're not blessed with the biggest squad in the world. We never have been. You are also, there is something I think in your brain that says, don't hit your friends, because if you hurt them and they're out, you're screwed because you need that player. So I definitely think as well, I was struggling with a bit of a switch in my head when it came to actually training. And I know you've played Chargers, we're a physical team and we're very physical in training, but I still was struggling with that switch in my head. And there's a couple of things that have helped me. One is, like I say, I do still do strength training and I've got a strength coach and he's from a rugby background, but he has made it his absolute mission to learn everything about American football and put some amazing stuff into my program that's really helped with my explosivity. So that has been really, really transformational in terms of like being able to just react really fast. In terms of hitting things, like genuinely just the practice, like I religiously turn up to practice. I work away quite a lot, and so occasionally I do have to miss, but I try and get to every single session and do every single rep because it is just practice. That is what's going to help you. And again, I mentioned it before, but it's a bit of a life hack, but I started with my strength coach. I literally set him up in pads and would hit him a lot. And then we're very lucky in that a lot of our coaches either play or have played pretty recently in their lives, and they will come to practice, they'll kit up and they'll let us beat the crap out of them. And I don't know what it is, but it's just so much more satisfying and so much more easy to practice hitting my coaches than it is hitting the other players. And I do absolutely love my coaches. This is not a kind of deep-seated hatred that I'm getting out through hitting them. And I can literally go to town on, one of our O-line coaches, Andy, who's probably 6'3" and about 200 kilos or whatever. Probably really insulting him there. He's probably nowhere near that big, but he's a big unit of a man. And I can hit and hit and hit, and he just doesn't even feel it. He doesn't even feel it. So it's helped me get past that kind of block of, I don't want to hurt other people, and I don't want to upset anyone. I just think that's still in your mind a lot of the time. So that's been a real help. But genuinely, it's just practice. I've seen it in myself over the last 3 seasons. I've just got better each season as I've had more practice, and that muscle memory. And you said it before, like it's those precise movements. It's just drilling those movements and doing all your basic, very boring but basic everyday stuff that you have to do. But the step up to nines has been more physical. At sevens, sometimes on a play you wouldn't even have a block to make because there isn't enough bodies. You didn't really need to. You don't get that problem at nines. You get a forefront a lot from D lines, and you haven't really got that issue. So it is a step up, not necessarily in how hard people hit. It's just the work. The game is a lot more work because you are putting a lot more effort in for a lot more reps that are longer. Longer drives as well. That's the other difference that I didn't really think about when we moved up from sevens. Was it's not just you get into halfway and then you get into the goal line. You could have 5 or 6 first downs on a drive, so you could be on the pitch for 20, 30 players, and that, yeah. I mean, luckily we've got Gabs as a running back, so we don't really need to do that very often. but occasionally we're on there for quite a few players, and being able to keep up that level of physicality for a longer period of time was definitely something that maybe I hadn't thought about as much until we actually got out there on the pitch.
Talking about Gabs, like the Chargers program has a stacked roster. You have got some really talented people. I mean, the whole team as a whole works chef kiss, but you've got some big names from like GB in there. You've got some people that have played at a very high level on adult teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
Was that intimidating for you, or
When I joined originally, no, and I think really because I didn't have a clue who they were, who anyone was, because I didn't know anything about football. So because I'd not been around and I didn't understand it, didn't understand how it worked in this country, didn't understand the league, I just didn't know. So I didn't have a clue who these people were, so I wasn't intimidated. I mean, people like Gabs and Hendricks and Pilks, who's obviously playing for us before, and Meg and Emma. You can see them as soon as you get on the pitch. You're like, oh, okay, you know what you're doing. You're an absolute beast. But I didn't know that level of kind of depth and experience that we had until obviously I got to know people. And I've never once felt intimidated. All that I felt, and I said this, I was game day captain at our last game day, and I did a little speech, and I said this, and I just am so privileged to be able to get on the field with people like that. Because going back to the conversation we were having earlier, I never thought I was going to be on a team with people that like are legitimate athletes, like legitimate, incredibly talented people who don't just play one sport, play multiple sports incredibly well, and will play literally every snap of a game, offense, defense, on special teams, and absolutely knock it out of the park. Like, I never thought I would have the opportunity to play sport amongst people like that. So I've never once felt intimidated. I've just always felt incredibly privileged and just so proud to be able to get on the field with people like that. I mean, last year, my second season, which was the first season of Nines, I was voted offensive captain. So I was offensive captain last year, and I bawled my eyes out because I couldn't believe that people like that wanted me to do that, you know? Like, oh, I'm going to get upset again. But I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that people who I stood on a pitch with and went, oh my God, you are so impressive and so incredible, wanted me to be their captain. Yeah, just it's an absolute privilege to ball out with those people every single week, even just at training. And they do inspire you to get better, and they do, you just kind of, their energy kind of does permeate, and you know, they every single person's incredible, though it's not just the ones who are lucky enough to be blessed with the athletic touch. They're all amazing, but it's just a privilege to play alongside every single one of them.
congratulations for being captain last game day as well.
Play.
Big. Didn't was it Hendricks that broke their wrist? Did they play with a
Hendricks did break their wrist in our last game, yeah. I know, bad times. Carried on playing, however, with the broken wrist.
I heard this. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
To
that's dedication, but oh my god.
To be fair, the medic did assess it, and it didn't look broken. It did look sprained, and they decided to carry on because they are an absolute beast, and they would do anything for the team. And yes, they have broken it.
Holy balls.
Yeah, but the good news is we found out, I think it was this week, that they don't need surgery. So that's the good news. It should be a fairly quick heal. But they've still been down at training. They've been on the sideline. They'll be at the game at the weekend. They won't spend a minute away from us. So we're really lucky with the kind of commitment that we get. So as I mentioned before, we've got a small squad. We've not got a big squad. We're not blessed in that. We've always struggled to recruit in the time that I've been there, and from what I understand, even before I was there. So we're very lucky that the players that we do have are typically really committed, and will do anything really to help the club out.
Where on average where's most of your intake from? Is it from rugby or uni teams?
It's a mix. So obviously I came down because of Emma Cook, and we do get people a lot in that way. So we get personal referrals, people bringing down friends or people that they've trained with in the past or played with in other sports. We do get quite a few rugby girls down, especially obviously the way the seasons align. It typically means that our playing season is their rugby off season. We do get a lot of people from social media. We do. So we run targeted ads and stuff like that when we're putting on rookie days. The biggest problem we have is getting people to stay. It's not attracting people. I think when we did our rookie days at the beginning of this season, we maybe had 30 odd rookies, which, if we'd have made all of them stay, that would literally double the size of our squad. That would have been incredible. Getting them to stick is difficult. And I think some of it is, a lot of it is they don't like contact. And unfortunately, I think it's just a fact with our sport. It is heavy contact. I think it's heavier than people think it's going to be. And some people just don't like it. And the problem you've got is that it's hard to get people to understand. It's hard to get people to stay long enough to really embrace it, because it is scary at first, really scary. Even if you're someone like me who's not really that scared of anything, it is intimidating. So getting people to stay long enough to make a proper decision as to whether they like contact or not is quite difficult. As much as I wasn't intimidated, I think part of that was probably my age and the fact that I was too old to give a shit about a lot of things. But it is it can definitely be intimidating. Then you go to your rookie day and you have a great time, but then when you come to a normal training session, the atmosphere is going to be a bit different, because people are going to be chatting to their pals. They're going to be bantering with the coaches because they know the coaches, they've trained with them a while. And I think it can be quite intimidating if you are younger, if you're maybe not very confident, if you don't know the sport at all. So we do obviously have people that come down that have never watched NFL, they don't understand the sport. It's a lot to get your head around, especially coming straight into a nines team now, because we've now got, from the word go, you're having to learn special teams, you're having to learn a lot more than you would have done if we'd have still been at sevens. So I definitely think, in a way, being at nines possibly benefits, because people are getting to play the full game. But at the same time, it can be, I think, a bit more of a barrier if you're brand spanking new to the sport. So I think it would be great if we could crack retention more than recruitment. I think recruitment, we've kind of got in a good place. We don't have the biggest catchment area. We're not blessed with as much of a big city as some of the other areas are. Leeds isn't as big as people kind of think it is, and around Leeds is pretty much like countryside, so there isn't a huge amount of catchment area. I mean, one thing that's always frustrated me since I've started, and I kind of don't want to get on my soapbox about it, but I feel like we get absolutely no support, like beyond, it's just shit, innit? Like, we get absolutely nothing. We get no help. We get, we've got a league that want the women's sport to grow. They say they want the women's sport to grow, and they've kind of pushed this agenda of getting to nines, but we've had literally nothing, absolutely nothing. And not only no help in terms of recruitment, advertising, grow, like that, content, anything to get the sport out there. Not only have we had no help, we've then also been expected to massively up our travel, massively up the sort of numbers that we need to play safely. Understandably, I get that we have to have certain numbers. The expectations on us have grown massively, and we've had absolutely no support. And I think that's really, really shit. And what worries me is that that's not going to get any better now that Flag's in the Olympics, and Flag is going to get all of the attention. Now, I'm actually probably going to try and play Flag this off-season, because I did enjoy it, scarily enough. And I don't have anything against Flag as a sport. I think it's amazing, and I'm really excited that it gets to be in the Olympics next cycle, and I think that's amazing. And I think Flag offers opportunity for younger people to get into the sport, and it offers an opportunity for older people who are maybe aging out of contact to stay fit and healthy. I think it's great. But I think, unfortunately, that might hinder the contact side of the sport even more, in my view, which will be really disappointing if that does happen, because, we haven't got much to go on anyway. And if you take the little support we do get away, it kind of worries me. And that's my biggest worry, is the future. Like, I've talked really passionately about the sport and about what it's done for me, and I want it to do that for as many other people as possible. And it frustrates me that it feels like there's just a handful of people trying to make that happen, and it's not yeah, it's not cool. I'm not here for that.
No, I completely agree. But that's why one of many reasons why this podcast is here, so that we can talk about the issues and,
Yeah,
you know, say like what's working for you guys and what's working for like the Shield Maidens blew my mind when they were just leaving cards in women's toilets. That
yeah,
like blew my mind, but that's really good best practice. But also I feel like I completely agree with you. Like, where is the support? Why is the organisation constantly chokeholding and kneecapping the women's game by referring to the Sevens League as a developmental league, but yet
yeah,
doing nothing to help the Nines and kind of looking after the well-being of the players? So I
yeah.
completely agree with that one.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, this year we've had 4 games and that's it.
It's
You
just
know,
not.
there's no playoffs for us. There's just one final game. And we all knew the whole season that final game was going to be London and Birmingham. And that's no slight on them as teams because they're incredible teams. But it was very obvious that that was where this league was going to go. And it was quite demotivating for a lot of us to know that we're paying the same amount of subs and the same amount of money and putting the same amount of effort in, if not more effort this year, because it's our second season of Nines and we really knew what we were getting ourselves in for, to play 4 games of football. Like, it's crap. It really is crap. And that in itself is going to prove a challenge, I think, recruitment wise going forward, because people are used to playing rugby or whatever, and you might be playing 10, 12 games a season or whatever minimum, and we're playing 4. And
it's not cheap either.
no, exactly. It's not a cheap sport, and that's the thing. A lot of it does come down to money, and like you say, what the Shield Maidens were doing. Like, we did a lot of that this year. We did a lot of flyering, a lot of things like that. But it all costs money. Like, that stuff isn't free. We have to get this stuff made. It's all self-funded from obviously subs that the players pay, and we're lucky to have some generous people involved in the club who might give us a few £100s here and there to help, but that shouldn't be how it works. It should be more sustainable than that.
Completely agree.
And I know this is a difficulty that like every amateur sport faces. It's not unique, but it's the unique thing about football is needing so many players to make it work compared to some others, and I think that's the thing that's difficult to make it sustainable. Is you essentially need double the number of people you need for any other team sport to make it viable, and that's really hard.
Yeah. But it's an important issue that needs raising. Completely agree. And it's like, how do you entice people to join a sport and train for so long, and then you're like 4 games and you're done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I completely get that.
And like we said before, especially if you're older and like me and you've like only got a few seasons left, like 4 games in a year and then I might not play again, like it's just not great. It's not cool.
Yeah. So, what has been your proudest moment so far this season?
This season, that's a really good question. Proudest moment this season.
Because can I just go on record and say that I watched your game against Titans on the live stream. It was fucking incredible. There was so many scores. It was such a good game.
Yeah. That game was incredible, and it was what was lovely about that game for me from an offensive point of view is, like you said before, we have some absolute athletes on our team. We've got Gabs, we've got Hen, we've got people like that. I think some teams possibly think that if we don't have a couple of those people, we wouldn't be the team that we are. And on that first game day, I mean, Jess, our QB, got offensive MVP. She shared that ball around. Every fucker was catching a ball. Every fucker was running with the ball. Like, it proved to us that we were all worthy of being on that team, and we weren't just relying on 1 or 2 people to score the points. So that game was amazing, not gonna lie. I think my proudest moment was probably a couple of weeks ago when we played Warriors, and playing London Warriors is a challenge. They are an amazingly talented team with a much larger number of players than we've ever had the luxury of having. They're incredibly well drilled. They obviously know their shit inside and out. Absolutely not going to take that away from them. Playing them is a challenge. And we played them with the bare minimum numbers that we had. We had literally the minimum you need to get on the pitch safely, at 18 and 19, however much that was. Yes, we had Hen ended up playing with a broken wrist. But we had people playing completely out of position. Like, at one point in, I think, the 3rd or 4th quarter, I looked around in the offensive huddle and there was one of our rookie D-line there, and I was like, "Hi, Natty." And she was like, hi. And I was like, what are you going to do? And she's like, tight end, I think. I was like, oh, cool, awesome. And we literally had people willingly throwing themselves into positions that they did not know to make sure we could finish that game. And that was a really, really proud moment for me to see at the end of that game. Yes, we lost. It was kind of an inevitable result, but we had an amazing day and we had a lot of fun, and everyone was just loving it. They just loved their football, and there's something quite freeing when you get into the kind of third and fourth quarter of a game when you know it's not going to go your way anymore, but you can just have fun. And we had people just having an absolute riot, running completely random routes that we don't normally run in our playbook, and just having, and that I remember sitting when we did our MVPs at the end and thinking that was just a great game. That was just so much fun. And that's what I play for. It's nice to win. It's great to win. But we're playing a sport where if you win, you're not really winning anything. You're not getting any money. We're not getting promoted anywhere or anything. Like, winning is great, and I'm an incredibly competitive person, but having fun is what I want. And that game was just so much fun despite the fact that we didn't win. And it was lovely to see the people recognised at the end with the MVPs that we gave out that day. And yeah, it was just a really nice day out. And I actually really get the most out of the games that are tougher. I think they're so much more rewarding than, as much as it is nice to score 92 points or however many we put up in that game, I actually prefer the grinders where we're getting 27, 28 points. I think in a way I find those more rewarding because you've really had to work for it. And you've really had to kind of face some quite difficult things on the pitch to get to the point where you're scoring points. So I think that game was my highlight. I am really looking forward to this weekend's game. I know by the time this goes out it'll have been and gone and we'll know the result, but last year when we played Lions, that was a proper score for score game, and it was really high scoring overall. It was 154 points in total, something like that.
Jesus.
It was a big old day last year, so I'm hoping that we get another good one as well this weekend.
I think what you touched on about fun football, I think that's so important. I think some teams can get so lost in the ability to win that they forget that we pay to play this sport.
Yeah,
and
it's a
fun
hobby.
football is safe football.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because, and to go back to the kind of challenge of being in a big group of women for the first time in my life, everyone has a different motivation for playing, and everyone is kind of on a spectrum from I'm just there for the vibes to I am hyper competitive, I want to win, I want to play for GB, I want to and there's a spectrum, and everyone falls somewhere between those two things. And even the coaches are the same. Like, some of them are hyper motivated to get the team to win, and some of them just come down because they love the game and they want to impart that wisdom onto other people. And they're not really that bothered about winning. And everyone falls somewhere along there. And having a kind of being tolerant of that and being cognizant of that is really important, because we always get together at the beginning of the season and try and find a few things that sort of unite us, and fun is always the thing that unites us. So whether you are just there for the vibes or you're there because you want to be the best player in the country, everyone does still want to have fun on a base level. And that has always been the thing that unites us. And we have fun from the second we start warm-ups to the cool down at the end. I mean, the cool down at the end is often the most feral part of the whole session, to be honest. And that is what we all come back for. We don't come back for the wins as much as we enjoy them at the time. We come back for the fun, and we come back for the community, and we come back for the fact that we can forget everything else that's going on in our lives and we get on that pitch and play with each other. That's what we come back for.
So you've already started to answer it, but I guess to kind of really let it develop, if you were to kind of bottle and try and describe the magic of the Chargers and what make you guys so uniquely you and what works, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky. Well, I don't know if it is luck or not, but I feel like it might be. in that mix of people that we've had. So because we're a small squad, and I said that the 3 years that I've played, we've been a small squad for that time, and we still are. One individual could have a massive impact on that squad, because it's like anywhere, if you work in a small workplace, it's the same. And we've been incredibly lucky that we've had some real stars, whether that be athletically, but personality wise, we've just got an amazing group of people who all bring something different. We range in age from, as I said, 17 to I think 41-ish is probably the oldest. Huge age range, huge range in type of like job, background, what we do. But we all love the sport and we're all very committed. And I said this before my last game, I won't name the player for legal reasons, but we had someone who was literally on shift and had their laptop under an umbrella at the side of the pitch at training and was nipping off between players to like send an email and deal with stuff. Like I've got girls who at the end of the training session, they're asking the coaches to stay later to work on something because they didn't get it quite right in the session, and they're like, no, I want to nail that before I go home. Like the commitment level is off the scale. And that everyone is individually committed to something, and whether that be they want to get better, they want the team to get better, and that commitment level is consistently high amongst that variety of people. And that's what makes the difference, I think, because if you've got a squad of 30 players or however many we've got now, probably less than that now, and you need 20 to turn up for a game day, you can't afford to have flaky people in the squad. Every single person needs to be really committed, and we've been very lucky that that's what we've had. I say some of it's luck, because I think some of it is it's innate in you as a person, whether you're the kind of person that is going to commit. But the other thing, as I mentioned, is we've been very lucky in the kind of veteran players that we've got. We've got some amazing people that step up and be captains, be on the committee, do that year in, year out for the club. We've got some really committed coaches. We're lucky. At one point, I think it was it was the last season of sevens. I think we started that last season with one coach. And we were like, okay, we're just going to have to muddle our way through this. And I think this year we've got maybe 7 or 8. And those coaches are incredible. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. They're not always my favourite people. And we always, we fall out about things and we moan that the drills are boring or whatever, usual stuff. But they are there before the games painting the pitch with us. They are there with stacks of flyers going around gyms, flyering for recruitment. They are putting just as much commitment into this team as the players, and that has made a huge difference as well. That they really want to see us succeed, and they love us to pieces. Like our head coach James. I don't know if you've ever met James, but he's quite quiet normally. But then you see him on a game week and he's like a whole different animal. Like he lives and breathes the sport, and he absolutely loves the club. And that commitment from all of them is it just makes you want to keep going as well, because you know that they want you to do well and they're there for you and they are putting as much effort into the club as you are, and it makes you want to come back and makes you want to play. So that commitment is a huge thing. And we've been very lucky, as I said before as well, that we're a bunch of misfits, and we found that kind of camaraderie in our misfitteriness. And we spend a lot of time with each other outside of football as well, and we talk a lot, and we've kind of all got our special interests, and we share those and bond over those as well. And we've just found that really good kind of friendship group, as well as it just being about football, and that's made a difference as well. We can support each other. I get players messaging me like, oh, can you look at my CV? I'm applying for a job, or, just like really random things like that. And that I think makes you closer as well, and makes you want to play with each other and play for each other, because you've kind of built those bonds that are stronger than just on the field.
If you could tell you 4 years ago that you would be asked to screen someone's CV by a teammate, someone that you would go to battle with on a daily and would be part of a team, what would you back then say?
I know it's the cheesy and obvious thing to say, but I absolutely would not have believed you. Like, absolutely would not have believed you, because I was in my mid-30s thinking, I'm never going to do I'm never going to be involved in anything like this. I'm never going to do anything like this. I'm past the opportunity window of your teens and 20s when you can get into this sort of stuff and make a difference. And I would just, I frankly wouldn't have believed you. I was in a bit of a rut coming out of COVID with sport, and I thought, I've genuinely missed every opportunity that I would have had, and nothing's going to come my way now. So I absolutely wouldn't have believed you. I would have thought you were completely lying.
But how would that feel now, looking back from them? Because COVID, I've spent it quite similar to you. I was quite isolated, very lonely. It's really hard to make friends when you're an adult. It's very hard. So I felt really lonely and isolated in COVID. How does that feel for you, going from that shift to looking to the future now, where you're here and you're part of a community and a team?
Yeah, gonna have to say this without it sounding like I'm having a midlife crisis, but it genuinely feels like a whole new kind of world has opened up for me. And I was thinking about it the other day because I was, like I said before, I'm thinking about what next if I do have to step back from playing at some point. And I'm desperately hopeful that it's not going to be for at least another couple of seasons. But I suddenly started thinking, well, no, I could be a coach. And not only could I be a coach, I could even, I'm not saying this is what I would do, but I could even make that a career. And all of a sudden I thought, oh God, there's a whole other world out there. So I've been climbing the corporate ladder since I was 21, depressingly enough. And as much as I've done a damn good job of it, somehow, goodness knows how.
Have you girl bossed your way too close to the sun?
I have girl bossed my way far too close to the sun, far too close to the sun. And as much as that has, for many years, I enjoyed that challenge. I enjoyed the challenge of climbing the ladder, and I enjoyed the challenge of getting the next promotion and getting the next job. I am now thoroughly done with it. Thoroughly done with corporate life. If I could quit tomorrow, I would. If you could count the amount of times in the group chat within a week period I say I'm going to quit tomorrow, it's an insane amount. It's more than there are days in the week. So what football has done is made me think that I have probably got other skills that I could use, and I have probably got the strength and ability, even in my late 30s, to quit something and start something new. And I've gone from thinking, shit, I'm far too old to make any sort of major life change, to think, oh, well, actually, and yeah, coaching was probably a terrible example because I definitely wouldn't be able to do that full time, but it's made me think, I can pick new things up, I can do new things, and I can do pretty well at them, and I can rely on other people to help, and there's all this stuff that I just didn't think I had access to. And it's definitely made me think, actually, I could completely change my life, and I could be looking back in 15 years' time when I'm just in my early 50s. Ugh. But I can look back at that point and think, wow, at 37, I made some really big decisions and changed quite a lot. So it's definitely made me realise that it's the biggest thing that I've done in my adult life that has made me think that, I can change and do things differently and try new things and not fail and not be afraid. And so I think where I am now, whether I'm playing or not in a few years' time, kind of body pending, I will be a different person regardless of whether I'm still playing or not. And that's really powerful, and that's really, really cool, and something you don't expect getting into a new sport as a hobby. You don't expect it to essentially change your life, and that's pretty cool. And I'm not going to say it'll change everyone's life, but I think in a small way it probably will.
Oh yeah, definitely will.
Might not be as major, but yeah.
You can't play American football and stay the same person. You can't. It's the community does something to you. It's all the best parts of us, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
So have you got any leaving sentiments for your adoring fans, for the Chargers, for anyone potentially thinking about joining sport?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully some people from the team will listen, and I really hope that they know how much I absolutely adore them, every single one of them, coaches and players. And I really hope I get to stay on the field with them for another few years. And if you're watching this and you've never played or you're looking to play, like genuinely what's stopping you? Genuinely what's stopping you? I'll come and pick you up myself if you're within a 2 hour radius of Leeds. Um, like just give it a go, because even if it's not for you, I think the aspect of trying something new and throwing yourself into something is a really healthy thing to do. And even if this sport isn't the right one for you, it might not be. It could open the door to something that is. And I think generally more women need to be playing sport. Generally more women need to be playing team sport. Massively more women than do now. So I think if this one isn't the right one for you, cool. But why not give it a go? You're going to look cool doing it, and you're going to meet some really cool people too.
Thank you. My leaving sentiments are this is our first ever conversation. We've followed each other on Instagram. I have been twatted about by you before playing against you. You have absolutely woman handled me all over the pitch on my years of D-line, and it was an absolute pleasure. You are a force to be reckoned with, and you are so fucking strong in
Thank
all the
you.
best ways possible, and you're never a dick about it. You're very clinical with your O-line, and I really respect that. So athlete to athlete, you're incredible, but person to person, knowing you, I'm really proud of you. And
Oh,
I know
thank
I
you.
say that to every guest, but I am. But for you to be really emotionally vulnerable and to do something where your whole life you've had this reinforcement that you don't belong, and to put yourself on the ultimate kind of vulnerable level of joining a team sport is really brave. And I'm so glad that you did, because you have impacted so many people and you've found somewhere to belong, and that's really, really powerful. And I'm really, really proud of you, because you've gone from that to being OC captain and game day captains as well. Like, that's fucking mind blowing. That's so cool.
It is cool. It is really cool.
I hope you're proud of yourself too.
I am. And again, yeah, that's a big change. It's not something I would have probably said a few years ago. So yeah, but I am proud of myself. And yeah, like the platform that you're creating here is amazing. And yeah, all power to you for doing it, because it's not easy to, it's easy to say that you're going to make a difference and kind of start to raise the profile and try and push the sport, but you're actually doing it, and that's incredible. So thank you for giving this platform, not just to me, but to everybody else that you've had on and you will have on in the future.
Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so brave about everything, and thank you to the Chargers. I had a lot of respect for you guys anyway, but definitely for what you're doing with your players is just really powerful. So thank you, Chargers. And with that beautiful, soft sentiment, I've been Bo Snow.
And I've been Emma Barrow.
And this has been Lids Off. Bye!